Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot. Thank you so very, very much for being here. It's time for a mini. And I think the mini is going to be on, the former guy. He has become more and more extreme. Now, I popped in, I think I did a reading on him like the week before last or last week. I'm not even sure anymore. But he's just becoming more and more extreme. His rhetoric is becoming more kind of authoritarian and in your face. And this is what I don't understand is, you know what? This is amazing red meat to the MAGA people who don't understand, I have to assume, sort of the implications of what he says because they just implicitly trust that because they follow him, he will never harm them. He will never do anything that, doesn't isn't good for them, that doesn't support them. Of course, I don't know how they have that calculated given all the people who are in jail because of J6, but hey, far be it for me to try to understand this stuff. So what I want to look at so this is, as I was saying, this is what I don't understand. So this is amazing red meat to his base. But how does that translate to a general election should he get that far? And that's where it becomes a little confusing because I can understand where the mega people who feel, they feel disenfranchised, right? They feel like their world is changing and they don't have any control over it and they don't like the way it's changing because it's not all going to be white and Christian. And I kind of understand that. But the general population who honestly hasn't been paying a whole lot of attention to politics because, they're kind of busy living their life and trying to deal with, the cost of stuff and paying for stuff and having jobs and kids in school or whatever it is. Um, but when they click in, they're going to be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? What retribution for what? What do you mean he's going to disassemble the Department of Justice and make them do his bidding? And like, I don't quite get it. So I want to take a look at what's going on internally. God knows it's a frightening place, but I want to take a look at what's going on internally with him and what the calculation is that's going on. You got Stephen Miller there just spouting this stuff. Trump's repeating it like the puppet he is. And, I mean, honestly, does Trump even know what he's talking about? Probably not. Does he understand the implications of what he's talking about? Probably not. It just makes him sound tough. And that's all he, cares about, aside from himself and money and his ego, that whole list. So let's take a quick peek and see the calculation is. What is the logic behind the extreme rhetoric? And maybe more importantly, where's it coming from? So we're going to look at today. In today's mini, thank you very, very much for being here. Your support is amazing. To the donors, oh my God, thank you so very, very much. So grateful for your ongoing support. It's just amazing. So thank you very much for all of the support that the Soulprint channel receives, and more importantly, the support for the Soulprint community. And all of you are part of that community, and all of you continue to support it. So I thank you very much for that. Let's get going here, shall we? Motivation behind extreme rhetoric. Motivation behind extreme rhetoric. Motivation behind extreme rhetoric. What is happening there? Where's it coming from? Does he understand? We're starting off, kind of not surprisingly, with the Two of Cups. This is a partnership, all right? Um, there are partnerships going on that he is committed to, much the way a couple are committed to each other. So that's, I guess, the base or the foundation, if you will, of part of what is going on. Now, what sits under that is the Five of Pentacles. This is about his fear of being, poor, right? Of losing support. For those of you who may not have heard, apparently the Koch brother, who I guess there's only one living, but that organization, they have gone all in now on supporting Nikki Haley, president, because they do not support Trump. And apparently the main Republican Party fundraising group, apparently they don't got no money. Like they're getting real close to being broke because of course they're so busy paying for all of Trump's legal stuff. So he's being motivated by fear and by money. So you have the Queen of Pentacles and you have the Ten of Pentacles. So this is about his sort of unsatiable desire for money, for status. And so he is very much being kind of dictated to. And I can't say with any degree of certainty, this sort of is just a random thought that popped into my head, is, and of course, this is just for entertainment purposes only. And I mean, I'm only allegedly saying this because, I don't really know. But what connection does Stephen Miller have to, Mother Russia? Because he is the writer, right? The creator, if you will, of a lot of the stuff that comes out of Trump's mouth. So this is interesting to me because on a basic level, I really think that Trump doesn't really understand. Now don't get me wrong. He's not so stupid he doesn't want to be a strong man. Yes, he absolutely does. And he loves the idea of being portrayed as tough and strong. We all know that. But I don't necessarily think that he has thought about how that's going to be received in a general election. I don't think he's thought about that because, as we know, he is so transactional that all he really cares about is what's going on today. What do I say today in this situation, in this circumstance, to make me look amazing? So that's kind of part of it. What you have outside forces or sources that are really um, applying pressure because they're out to take and get Five of Swords, whatever they can. And what they're trying to get is the deterioration of democracy in the United States. They want the United States to look, foolish and silly and out of control. And they want their people in more authoritarian countries to think that that really is a better system because, at least they don't look foolish like the Americans do. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's like they're literally showing me sort of like a spider web. And there's all of these different sources and avenues, and they all have similar but different motivations, but they all ultimately feed into the center of that web. And who is standing at the center of that web is none other than Trump, who, because he is so self-focused on the center of the web, isn't paying any attention to um where it's coming from, what it looks like outside of the center. And this is the thing. Um, while a spider web is considered to be incredibly strong, um, I guess for what it is, I've never quite understood that. But in any case, they say it's very strong. But you know, you just have to lop off one side or punch a hole in the center, and this thing sort of folds in on itself. And so he's not there. He doesn't get it. He is like spinning and spiraling, all right? When I go into his energy, he is so frightened of what's coming down the pike for him in terms of his legal issues. He props himself up with these polls that tell him he is amazing and everybody still loves him. And we've determined that, the polls, you kind of have to take them with a grain of salt because a lot of them are really like slanted in certain ways to sort of elicit certain answers, right? But he is so wrapped up in trying to keep his butt out of trouble and keep his butt out of jail, and maintain this illusion of, this incredibly successful and suave and sophisticated businessman who is the best and the greatest that ever was. That the rallies that he's doing, which I understand, by the way, the venues are getting smaller and smaller. I mean, um, I don't know, last week, the week before, he was doing one like in some high school gymnasium, for goodness sakes. I mean, that is a far cry from the great big stadiums. I wonder if he's actually ever paid those bills, because I know a lot of those cities were still trying to get money for, the last grouping of rallies that he did. But his venues are getting smaller, but, the people in his immediate circle are doing a very, very good job of sort of telling him a story that he wants to hear. They have some clarity about the fact that, what, this is not going as well as they would like it to. And there's even some realization that some of this really extreme rhetoric is not being well received. In fact, what it has done, it has set up a bunch of red flares, and people across the spectrum are saying, "Oh my God, are you listening to what he is saying?" And if there's one thing we know, is when he says something outrageous, he means it. We always thought it was bluster, right? 6 years ago, 7 years, however long ago that was. Oh my God. We always thought he was just mouthing off, but we understand now that when he says this really outrageous stuff, he actually really, really means it. So what's going on internally is you've got this person who is like stressed out and spiraling, right? You have a core group of people around him who continue to tell him what he wants to hear, whether it is that lawyer guy who's apparently like not really a real lawyer or not an active one, who all the other lawyers have to go through, right? So he's the one telling Trump that his court cases are doing far better than they are. Whether it is the people who are sort of working on this campaign and they're telling him things are going much better than they are. Um, but he in his own he's in his own bubble. And his primary focus in that bubble is staying out of jail and how do I do that, and trying to maintain a reputation. And so the rest of it to him in many ways feels like white noise. And so he says what's on the teleprompter, um And we all know that whatever comes out of his mouth in that moment, he absolutely 100% believes, even if 5 minutes later, what comes out of his mouth is the exact opposite, right? That's what's going on in that head of his. So that rhetoric of his is not being well received. King of Pentacles, here he is, one of my cards for him, followed by the Emperor. So, he is in a place where he is having, grand illusions about how things are going. And he really is not being mindful of the fact that um it, it what he's saying and the message that's being promoted are, as I said, causing like red flags and red flares to go up across the country. And not only across the country, but frankly, across the world in other democracies. And so I think that as he says this stuff, and listen, it's concerning, all right? I'm not going to try to sugarcoat that. Some of the stuff that's coming out of his mouth is just downright frightening. But let's all take a deep breath and remember that one, he's not going to get in, or one, he's not going to be sitting in the Oval Office where he can actually enact this stuff. But more, that he, in many ways, does almost not have the comprehension to understand the implications of what he is saying. All right. And whether that is because there is a mental deterioration or simply because he is so emotionally agitated and wound up that nothing except that primary need to survive is sort of the only thing that's front and center in his face. The court cases are not going well for him. And politically, the stuff that's coming out of his mouth is not going well for him. And I guess that, the thing that needs to be remembered is that even if Nikki Haley is able to surge ahead, you have huge swaths of Republicans, very conservative Republicans, who are not likely to vote for her simply because she wears a skirt. So there's that dynamic that's going on. So, as much as possible, step back from the crazy rhetoric, okay? Because he's just yammering. And it's important to recognize that he is a puppet. This is not a fight he's going to win. And that to a significant degree, there seems to be a real, and I hope I'm making this clear. It's not that he doesn't want to be a strong man, because he does. And so when he says things like, I am your retribution, he means it. But he doesn't have the mental wherewithal, apparently, to be able to understand the ramifications of that and the consequences of those kinds of statements and how those kinds of statements are actually received in a broader way. Okay? So everybody just take a deep breath and understand that this is where he's at right now. This is what he's talking about right now, because this is his survival mechanism. Okay? Um and that's what I know for now. All right. Thank you very much for being here for this mini. That's kind of a little long for a mini. But anyways, take good care of yourself. Don't forget to put your questions in the comment section and for Pendulum Friday. And I will see you tomorrow with another mini. Bye-bye.